everybody. Welcome back to Best Books Ever. I'm Tyler, and today we are finishing Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. Chapters 35 through 64. Plus, there's a little epilogue in there as well. Yeah, the end. The end of the book. Would you look at that? A lot of stuff happened. Couldn't quite predict how the book ends. I mean, good guys win. That is generally how these things happen, right? If the bad guys win, I'm trying to think of the last book I read where the bad guys win. I mean, I've read books somewhat recently where it feels like nobody wins. That's been something for sure. Um, I don't know that I've read a book where the bad guy wins. Because I feel like that's like, what's the whole point? Anyway, this is dumb. Yeah, finished Trust the Emerald Sea. I thought it was great. I think just some general stuff. I think them telling this story from the viewpoint of Hoid, I thought was very interesting. Um, I like, because because obviously we had, it wasn't just Hoid the whole time. It was, we had dialogue and stuff from, Tress's perspective, which again is still being told through Hoid, but like, it is nice, especially in the fantasy genre, to read a book that doesn't jump around perspectives. I feel like that's like a big thing that has just gotten more and more popular as the years have gone on. Where it's like, oh, we have multi perspective. You're gonna jump into the heads of 3, 4, 5, 6 different people, and it's gonna be like a rotating cast of characters that you're gonna have the story be told from a first person perspective, but again through many many different characters. Brandon Sanderson does this in pretty much every other one of his stories. We look at Mistborn, right, and it's like it's Vin, I would say, for the majority of the time, but it definitely jumps around to like Sazed and Kelsier and uh, Elend and all the other characters that are in the book that mean nothing to you if you haven't read it, but it doesn't just stay on Vin the whole time, for example. So for this, where it is like it's for the most part, it's Hoy telling the story through, or through Tress. We do see like Crow's thoughts for a couple chapters, and I guess Hoyd in the story for a little bit here and there. But it is sort of refreshing that we didn't have like full chapters where now we're in the mind of Fort and like what is he thinking and all that stuff. So but yeah, book is over. Like I said, it ends in a very peculiar way, right? Like I said, good guy wins. So that's always a great thing, right? Hoyt is able to help Charlie break his curse. Um, that in itself, though, like breaking the curse is really cool. But again, good guy doing good guy things, very by the numbers. It would feel incomplete if the book ended and Charlie was still Huck, right? So the more interesting part of this is that Charlie was cursed, and cursed in the way that we didn't see, right? He was actually Huck the whole time. That's the more interesting part. The part that, um, that he got cursed, or the part that he broke the curse, like whatever. I mean, we expected that. We expected Hoyt to do something, or for Tress to find a way, even if it took forever, right? But the fact that he was Huck, and you look back now and you're like, okay, yeah, I sort of see that. Even I think the biggest tell for me, I mean, obviously there was the whole like not being able to talk about it and stuff, whatever. But personality wise, I think the way he would tell stories was very Charlie. How passionate he would get about the most mundane things. And he obviously exaggerated that when he was trying to ward off the other princesses, right? Because he didn't want to marry any of them. He obviously wanted Tress, but that is still him though. Like he does still get very excited because, I think that's a symptom of something we've seen, I'm sure, in many, many stories where the prince or some sort of royalty or someone who is in a very high station, who's grown up at a very high station, has maybe been sheltered because of their, their bloodline or whatever. Um, they get very excited when they get to talk to other people, more like normal people, ordinary people, because they get to talk to them about very normal things that they don't get to experience, you know. Um, so like for Tress, like going out to the market and haggling for her lousy ingredients that are terrible, but she's trying to get the right ones for her family because they can only afford so much and whatever, right? That stuff to Tress, she's like, this is boring. No one wants to hear me talk about this. But to Charlie, he's like, tell me every detail because he doesn't get to do things like that. And, again, in a sense, it is almost like you going to a zoo and being able to look at these animals, and these animals are like, hey, let me out. Although I guess in good zoos, the animals should be very happy, um, because they're fed and taken care of and exercise and all that stuff. But you know what I mean? In the stereotypical, like, animals want to be free, you like sort of watching them and you finding joy from their captivity. It's sort of an analogy for this, right? Where it's like, Tress is boring, somewhat, I would say very poor life, maybe not internally, but externally, again, with the ingredients and the living conditions or whatever. To her, it seems very menial, right? But to Charlie, it's like the most exciting thing in the world. So you translate that to when he was Huck and the way he would talk about, when they stopped at port, and he would talk about like the engravings in the stonework and the paths and stuff, or the way he would explain like, people buying things or, whatever, right? How there was like 37 bells in the bell tower, and you think there was just one, but there's a lot of them, and they have strings that you pull on them, and all that stuff. It's like that was very Charlie coded. So again, in hindsight, all the clues were there. So yeah, I really like that reveal. Because her being like, wait, hold on, this person is not Charlie. Going back and being like, you turned him into a rat. It's like, oh my god. What else do we have? I guess we'll just go. Speaking of curses, Hoid was able to break his curse as well. That's a big thing. Like I said, Hoid, much more important character in this book than I initially thought he was going to be. But that's okay, because like I said, Hoid is very important in the Cosmere. However, you don't really need to know anything about Hoid to understand his importance. Like this book could be read before any other Cosmere novel. I think even like, I think Brandon Sanderson recently put out like a reading order for all of his books, which he normally doesn't do because, I think his philosophy is like there's lots of different starting points into his like Cosmere universe. But I think Tress was like, hey, you could read this first. You could read this before anything else. But anyway, yeah, so Hoid, very important. At the very end, he finally gets redeemed. He finally gets to show some of his true colors. Like, hey, I am important. I am powerful. This curse is really, really handicapping me. I don't know. I just thought that was really cool too, because I think that, obviously people who have read some other stuff in the Cosmere, we may have not necessarily seen him be powerful before, but we've heard stories that maybe he's told before of like, sort of infer that he is some sort of powerful being, and the fact that he is in other places of the Cosmere, it's like, okay, Hoid is something. So for us to get here and just to finally see it, it's like, okay, cool, this is neat. And again, if you've never read anything else, it is still a really cool moment because even Ulam sort of hints at it here and there. It's like, oh, Hoid's immortal. What is this? Like, I wouldn't want to mess with him. And you look at Hoid and you're like, how? how like is Ulam telling jokes? Like I don't understand, you know. But then it's like he wouldn't do that, and he's very consistently talking about this stuff, and um, I don't know, you know, it just turned out to be true. And Hoyt is, and you know, Ulam is also his own level of powerful. So it's like if he keeps doing this, there's got to be some truth to it. Um, let's see, what else do we have? I mean, yeah, I guess the last big thing at the very, very end was Tress demanding that the sorceress leaves the planet. Again, this whole sorceress thing I think was very jarring. Um, Again, even someone who like I said, has read all the other books in this universe, um, wasn't expecting there to be like modern technology in the sorceress's place, like her having computers and like TVs and laptops and stuff like that. Wasn't expecting that, you know. I mean, even like um, automatic doors, the automatic sliding doors that you'll see in like a grocery store or something. Wasn't meant to see any of that, so that was interesting, and that really tips you off of like, okay, she's got to be from like the future or from another planet that's more advanced technologically than this one, which does make sense. I mean, even Hoid mentions at the beginning that like the reason why she didn't take her chances with Hoid at the end is because she doesn't take chances like that. Like she came to this planet because she was the most powerful being and she could be comfortable here, but also do anything she wants. And then she discovered there's a dragon, and then she discovered there's Hoid, and that's when things get a little dicey. So, um, yeah, so like even with that, not even her having these pieces of advanced technology, but also she does have, it seems like, a lot of different types of powers, a lot of different things that she can do, like her, taking control of the spores in the way that she does, the way that she has these like big metal guards. I don't know what they're called, like metal golems, basically. Um, the like blinding light magic that she has. Obviously, her being able to curse people is huge. Um, you know, and then, like I said, at the very end, Tress says, "Hey, you have to leave." And with the help of Hoid, I was really like that moment too, where Tress was like zap her with lightning or something, and Hoid was like, "Are you giving me orders?" She's like, "Well, you are part of my crew." I thought that was funny because again, taking away everything outside this book, you look at Hoid and you're like, Hoid just came in and helped. I mean, not even helped. Like he single-handedly went against the sorceress and went in between Tress and the sorceress. So the fact that we now have an inkling as to how powerful he is, and like now you look back at everything Ulam, even like the little, small throwaway comments that he made about Hoid, you now understand that all of those are justified and that all those have weight. And now you're like, oh, he did say he was immortal. He did say that he was super powerful. He did say that the only person that could go against the sorceress is Hoid. So all those things have weight now. And then you have Tress telling him what to do. It's just very amusing to, I think, us, the reader, but also like Hoid as well. Um, and her leaving the planet, Or just gone. Never see her again, I'm sure. Like I said, there isn't like a sequel to this book. Um, I suppose it's possible that we've seen her in the Cosmere somewhere before under a different name, maybe. I don't know. Maybe the same name and I just forgot. I don't know. Um, but yeah, but I mean, also that in itself, space travel. Like that's something on this planet unheard of. Something that's like, maybe there's like stories out there, people living on, I think Tress maybe, because I think Ulam mentioned something about coming from another planet. And then Tress was like, "Oh my God, is that real?" Like, because she like maybe heard stories, like one of Charlie's stories or something about people who live amongst the stars. But again, like actually doing it, like executing space travel, is something that is not possible on the planet that they're currently on. So that in itself is like, whoa. Um, But yeah, that is all the big end stuff. I do have a few other things I would like to talk about, though. Some other somewhat smaller moments. I really like when Laggert helped Anne fire the cannon. I thought that was nice. Being able to break her mental block that she had, because for so long, I mean, pretty much her entire life, she has been missing. And even when she is now corrected, seemingly the biggest hurdle, which is her glasses, which we'll get to in a moment, she still can't hit anything. She's closer, but not nearly close enough. And it turns out that while her physical, block has been solved, her mental block is still very much intact. And so for Laggard, against someone who was the right hand man to Crow for so long, and pretty much the only person on the ship that probably still a little wary around of like, don't think he's gonna turn on us, but just don't really know what to make of him and like what his allegiance is and like how loyal he is, like how much does he stand by the like pirate code? I don't know. But then yeah, to have him like step up and be like, do this, do that, a little to the left, little up, and then for her to hit something and then immediately fall into stride and be like, oh, this is it, her just sheer will and her sheer desire to want to do this is finally matching up with her ability to do this. Um, and that is a beautiful thing. And then I guess, yeah, talking about the spectacles. Well, that was really fun. I guess we'll just pair these two things together. The dragon taking Crow instead of Tress. I thought that was a really fun interaction. I think just the fact, we've sort of talked about it before, but now that the encounter has happened, um, just the fact that dragons exist on the planet, like dragons being a thing, and I like Hoid too, his little tidbits too about how like, the word dragon has persisted across planets because that's what dragons have decided, and it really, again, to use this phrase again, like it really holds weight because it's like, oh, dragons are an important creature here on this planet and across other planets as well. I thought that was really, really cool. And for it to be kind of scary of like, oh, like how how is this dragon gonna act, like what is the personality here, like what is it, more monster, is it more like one of the wise dragons, is it like mischievous, like what are we, what kind of fantasy dragon are we getting in this story? And for Crow and Tress to argue, and then for the dragon to just be very amused and be like, okay, what do you have to say to that, Tress? Okay, Crow, she kind of made a good point. And for Crow to keep making good points upon good points, and and for the dragon to be like, I'll be honest, Tress, you are losing this argument. I thought was really funny. But yeah, and then for it to end with Tress being like, oh, I'm gonna escape no matter what. I'm gonna make it my mission to escape. Like, I'm gonna be the most troublesome servant you would ever have. And then for Crow to try to double down on that after she's clearly already won this debate, and the dragon to like magically cover her mouth and then have a little sidebar with Tress and be like, man, she's really annoying, huh? she really is just the worst. And it's like them like talking about Crow as if she isn't in the room. I thought was really funny too. Um, yeah, that was cool. And then yeah, just to bring it back to the spectacles, for the dragon to not be able to interfere, because that seems to be a thread amongst a lot of these characters. A lot of the more powerful characters always seem to say that they are not allowed to meddle in things. Ulam said the same thing where he's like, I can't really, not really allowed to, I kind of have to stay a neutral party. Um, for him to be able to like directly help, but then Tress be like, okay, well, instead of one large boon, what about three smaller boons? And then in that moment, again, it just shows her personality and where her head is at this whole time, going all the way back to why she decided not to escape when they were at the one port, because she was like, I can't, like I could leave, I've made it pretty far so far, I could try to find a way to the Crimson Sea, and I can, but I would be abandoning these people, even though at that point she still like barely was on the ship, barely knew these people, but she still looked at them as friends, and she's like, I can't just abandon them because they are gonna still be under Crow, and they're gonna have to deal with her. Um, and that is the like climax of that is right here, where she gets glasses for Anne, so Anne can see, which is a great reveal because it's not something that I ever considered of like, oh, Anne sucks at aiming because she can't see. Like she's not blind, but she desperately needs glasses. It's such a simple solution where like it's so simple, like it's too obvious to the point where I never thought that that was the reason why she is terrible at firing guns or cannons. Fort got a new board, which was really nice. That came after their whole fight, where Crow just mopped the floor with them. Was able to give him a new board, which isn't just like, oh, thank you for replacing the thing that was broken of mine. That tablet is his way to communicate with people. He could communicate without it, but it would be a lot harder and require a lot more patience and probably be the source of a lot of frustration while people maybe learn some sort of sign language or something to help communicate. So that like having that and then having that being taken away, like his way to communicate, his like tether to his people, his friends, his family, and then for Tress to be able to give that back to him, was a really nice moment. And then lastly, we have Soleil. Soleil got some information, got a letter with some information on the letter about her father, which is nice. Especially in this case, because it turns out that she actually recently just left the place that he is at. So it's like, man, that's the worst. Not being able to find him is terrible, obviously, but him being actually one step behind you, like you would forever be ahead of him. Like that ensures that you would have never found him. Um, so that was great too. So again, all these things aren't just things. They all hold they all hold a deeper meaning. It's not just objects that she was able to get him or get them. It was things that represented kind of who they are and their desires and their passions and the way that they're able to still um, have their passions be included in their lives. What else do we have? We got a few more things. um I guess sort of connected to that, one thing I really really liked was I guess these two things are connected, and these are actually the two last points I want to make, so I guess I'll talk about them both since they're kind of connected. I really, really liked when Tress lifted the ship up with the vines. I thought that was really fun because the whole spore thing is cool. Uh, Turns out that we never did find out what all the other spores do, which I think is fun because it adds some sort of mystery to it if we ever return to this universe. But um, the spores being a thing, us learning about them, like kind of the mechanics of how this magic nature element thing works on this planet. And then for a character, Tress, to manipulate them, to learn more about them. Her doing her little experiments with the flare gun, her doing her experiments of like being able to sort of control them, like sort of kind of control them, pushing and pulling and all that jazz. And for it to sort of culminate into this moment, I mean, we have other stuff in the, her being able to, her learning about the midnight stuff and being able to um, sort of kind of manipulate that. I mean, even for his knowledge on that and being able to like trade, to barter in a sense with the midnight eel things. That was fun. So again, like whenever characters take the magical element, sort of the structure to the magic system on a planet and learn more about it, study it, and being able to manipulate it in a way that we haven't seen before is always exciting. And so for Tress to do that and be like, hey, these, not only the spores, but in tandem, we have the storms, which on this planet, fantastic. I think we talked about this last time, but like that, that was a question that I think we all had. Um, when we're reading this book, it's like, does it rain on this planet? Because if it rains, that is utter catastrophes. Like that is like what would happen. And so for it to explain it, be like, rain happens, but it's very small and very focused. Very very tight. But the clouds themselves just like go crazy. They just go random. Um, so that still, so that was it. That's a way to explain of like, hey, it doesn't rain like it does on Earth, because if it did, that would be again catastrophic. But there is still danger, because while these storms are small, they are erratic. So for that to be a thing, for that to be a whole new thing to be introduced, and it to be basically a telltale sign of danger. Like, hey, spores we can deal with. We have things, we have the silver, whatever. But like, if a storm comes, if rain comes, we can't really dodge it, and we can't predict it, and it is going to destroy our ship. Like, even, obviously we get further into the Crimson thing, which is like, if that happens in the Crimson Sea, we're dead. But even in the Verdant Sea, it's like, it is going to mess up our ship. Like, we maybe won't die. There's a chance. I mean, we have a much greater chance of living through a storm in the Verdant Sea than we do in the Crimson Sea, but it's still going to be very, very, very bad. And again, for them to reach the Crimson Sea where it happens, and then for Tress to be able to have pieced a lot of different information together, obviously through experiments, but then also through the notes and all that stuff, and also be willing to execute on such a crazy idea to lift them up. I thought that she was going to create some sort of like umbrella over the ship to make it, like some like perimeter around it as well, not just over it. That wouldn't have solved anything. But for her to lift it up, basically lift it up high enough that when the water hits the crimson spores surrounding it, the crimson spikes that are formed don't pierce the ship. Genius. I love that. That was great. So again, manipulating the spores for stuff, obviously using them for weapons, like to know with the cannonballs and stuff, but also using them as like tools almost is fun. And then that is connected to the other thing that I wanted to mention, which is a great moment, and purely because, I mean, not because of this specifically, but this is sort of like the final push that led to this thought and this feeling. Crow realizes that something that is more powerful than fear is love. She's been controlling her crew by fear this whole time, afraid of her, but also afraid of consequences, right? So afraid of her because she has the spores, and she could kill all of them in a moment or whatever. Even without the spores, honestly, we learn that a little later. She's a very, very skilled hand-to-hand combat. But then also afraid of the predicament where it's like, y'all are dead runners now, So unless you want to get killed by some other pirates when we're not prepared, or unless you want to be taken in by the king or whatever, you should probably follow what I say. It'd be in all of our best interest. But then she sees Tress do this, and the feelings have already kind of been brewing and heightening ever since Tress got on the ship. But this moment where she's able to save them in a situation that was hopeless, was they were all basically praying and like making whatever peace they needed to with whatever people or whatever gods that they believed in, because they were like, it's over. And for Tress to save them, And again, not even for anything in return, like Crow has done with her fear method. It's like, I'm doing this because I want something. Tress wants something too, but, I love what Hoid was saying. Hoid, the narrator, was saying, where it was like, typically what you'll see in heroes is they will do things for the people they love, not for a thing. They will not go out there, heroes and stories will not go out there and actually have these huge heroic moments because they want to appease their king or they want to serve their country or something. The most heroic, the most courageous, the most passionate um, actions will come from the hero wanting to protect their loved ones, their family, their friends, and all that stuff. So I think that is really the essence of what Tress was doing there, where again, at the end of the day, she didn't want to die. That's self-preservation. But also, um, aside from self-preservation, she doesn't want herself to die or anyone else on the ship to die because she needs a crew to get through the Crimson, to the Midnight, to the Sorceress, to Charlie. But a big reason for this is because she wanted her friends to not die. Like she couldn't go through that. Um, and so again, I love that moment, that like little click, the final domino falling in this realization that Tress's love is is being outweighed. I think is officially being or is outweighing Crow's fear from the crew. And I need to take care of that. And so that's, obviously when we get into the whole like Crow finding out about their plans with the midnight spores and then them fighting and then Crow just mopping the floor and them going to the dragon, all that stuff. But I just love the moment of like, Crow's like, oh no, they love her more than they fear me. And if they don't, they're close. They're close. And that's not good for my needs, you know. But yeah, that is the story. That is Tress of the Emerald Sea. Absolutely love it. Sorry, I my brain turned off for a second. Um, yeah, yeah. That was a good story. Like I said, there were things about it that were surprising. Like I said, just a simple fact of the the structure of the book, the framing of the book, of it being narrated, I think is interesting. I don't know that I've ever really read a book like that, where the book is literally narrated by an author or by a narrator. As it is, usually the one who narrates is called the narrator. I thought that was fun. Yeah, like even like them turning Tress into a hero and her still being a very, very normal person and her never really doing anything because of heroism, again, like the classic adventurer tale. Like that's not really her. Like she sort of fell into everything, and at the end of the day, she was doing things for very selfish reasons. Like I mean, you've wanted to find the person you love is both selfless and selfish. Again, because she sort of noticed that like she was risking the lives of everyone else just to find the person that she loves. We did have people die along the way, and that really hit her hard, as it should. Um, so. But I think it was good. I think it was solid. I enjoyed it very much. So yeah, let me know your thought of that book, that ending, but also the book in general. Next week, we're going to start the next Cosmere secret project. Um, like I said, there is another secret project that we're not covering because it is not Cosmere. It is not part of the Cosmere universe. It is just another book that he wrote outside of it. Not saying it's lesser, but I read the Cosmere stuff that he does and nothing else. And, at some point I'll get into the other stuff he reads, but all the stuff that he publishes that is under the Cosmere uh, branding, that's sort of my thing. So we're gonna be skipping that one. Maybe at some point we'll get around to it. I don't see why we wouldn't. But as of right now, we are skipping it, and we are going to the next one, which is Yumi and the Nightmare Painter. Um, I know even less about this one. Tress, I knew a tiny bit about, and nothing really about the story. The only thing I knew about Tress going into it was that, and I didn't want to say this because I didn't want to I didn't know if it was a spoiler or not. Like, I didn't really know. But I know that one of the inspirations for this, for Tress, was the Princess Bride. Um, I actually read The Princess Bride shortly, like literally a few weeks ago, because I'm like, oh, I've never read The Princess Bride. Maybe I should read it before reading Tress. I see some of the similarities, but it's definitely not just like a parody of Tress of The Princess Bride. Like, there are some elements you could see the inspiration, but anyway, Yumi and the Nightmare Painter. I know nothing about this. It sounds like a cool title. The Nightmare Painter just sounds cool. Like, I wonder if the painting is literal or if it's figurative. Knowing Brandon Sanderson, it's probably literal. There's probably there's some sort of magic system that involves painting. um, I'm not really sure what that could be, but my brain already goes to a bunch of different things of just like, even just you sitting here right now, it's like if someone told you that there's a magic system with painting, you probably imagine a few different things. But yeah, again, I know nothing about the plot, the characters, anything. I literally don't. So it's gonna be fun. We're gonna cover the first couple parts. It's gonna be chapters 1 through 17, and yeah, we'll get into it. We'll have a good time. So that's it. That is it. Really enjoyed Tress. Excited to get to Yumi. Um, and we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. We'll see what sort of magic system he got. See what kind of story it is. If there's any other crossover characters, I'll be sure to point them out. As long as I don't feel like I'm spoiling anything. Hoid is probably the exception though, because you can't really spoil anything with Hoid, because Hoid is he's kind of everywhere, and like, he's important, but he's also not like, he's also not if you don't know why he's not. You know what I mean? So anyway, I don't know. But yeah, till next time, read first 17 chapters of Yumi, and we'll see what this is all about.